You're paying top dollar for us to watch a child go to the manicure, go on vacation. We'll see you on visiting day. It's all good.
But if there's a kid that at the end of the day cannot function in a sleep-away environment, then he can't be in a sleep-away environment.
Welcome to the Learning Curve podcast, brought to you by Mishpacha magazine.
We're raising children in a changing and challenging world.
So let's tackle the important issues facing frum families today.
I'm Rabbi Garfield, Manal of Yeshiva Torah's MS in Houston, and I love talking about chinuch.
I'm Rabbi Ari Schonfeld, Manal Yeshiva Katana of Manhattan, director of Camp Aish. I also love talking chinuch and sometimes fishing.
Join us as we answer your questions and discuss the topics that matter to parents the most.
Rabbi Garfield, welcome back as we continue to try to discuss matters that matter the most to the parents today. How you doing, Rabbi?
I'm doing great. I'm actually thinking the title Learning Curve. We mentioned that it's TLC, right? Which is cute.
Yes, cute.
But when you hear a learning curve, what are we curving? What's being curved?
What's being curved? Like a pitch in baseball, you mean?
Is that a type of pitch? Like when it starts low and it goes up? What's that called?
No, there's no.
You're the baseball guy. A sinker is when it goes down, but we don't want to do that. It's an inverted sinker.
Oh, Rabbi Garfield.
We're carving an inverted sinker on this.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope one of our listeners who's a baseball expert.
You're from Houston. I don't know if you'll get this reference. Whatever pitch they throw in Houston probably has some sort of illegal buzzer that helps them get the pitch. Did you get that?
2017, okay, good. You might want to come up with something new. That's 7 years ago, 3 World Series ago. Okay. Anyway, getting back to the topic on hand.
Yes. So we have a very exciting program today, a conversation that's dear to my heart. It's about camps. We'll get there. But as always, we start with 2 emails, smaller topics. The first one actually is, I think for the first time we're going to play this, meaning such a type of question. It's a voice mail that was left by a woman. And so we're going to play the question for us to hear. And then Rabbi Garfield, you'll tackle this one, and then we'll move on to the next one. So tell me when you're ready. Ready to roll?
I'm ready.
All right. Okay. So here's a question that was sent in to the Learning Curve.
I just listened to your first podcast and loved it. I especially like the part where you encourage parents to revere the Rebbe and perhaps even take his side while validating the child's pain or discomfort or embarrassment. What I don't understand is why parents sometimes send a child to a yeshiva that has certain rules and regulations which they don't expect to abide by, and they figure out ways to circumvent it and actually even encourage their children to circumvent some of the rules. My question is, if you don't like the rules of a school, why do you send your child there? And once you send your child there, why can't you understand that it's important for everyone to follow the guidelines that the yeshiva presents in the first place?
So that was a wonderful question. Listen, the simple answer is you're right. It's wrong. It's bad chinuch. It's not right. But, we'll leave the simple answers for my co-host, and I will dig a little deeper. I think it's important whenever we're tackling, this is a question almost as much as it's the parents, the leadership, like what kind of school are we leading and why are we setting up expectations that are not, being followed? So I think, first of all, we have to seek to really understand the parents in that scenario. And many times there's no choice. There are other reasons they have to send to that school. There's not a million schools that fit the other aspects of their life. I think that we sometimes live in a world where we might have an ideal, but we're not quite there in full. That's one thought. I remember I met a Manal once, and we were talking about the internet, and they live in a community where they require their students and their families to sign like an internet, no internet family. And like he himself has internet. And I'm like, that is the most absurd thing ever. And it's sort of like the whole thing is a known joke. It's like, I think everyone's in on it. Meaning a lot of these rules, everyone knows that everyone else knows that it's not really being followed. And it's like a big game. And, that's obviously not ideal, but I don't know if it's considered like as bad or mekach place if we all know, or Gnevas Das, if everyone knows that everyone else knows that it's not to justify it.
Right. And just to add that
It's not very inspiring as I say it, but it's
it wasn't exactly the most.
not exactly inspiring.
Yeah. No, but I do think that there are different types of rules and ideals. Yes, the ideal that every yeshiva, that every kid and every family and every yeshiva should follow all the rules in the student handbook and the parent handbook.
Correct.
But there are rules, and we're both from Allen. We both know that there are certain rules that we believe in the SM. We think these are important Torah values that you need to have, the right type of yeshiva. And then there are rules you have for political reasons and rules you have because you're trying to keep away a certain type of family. So not every rule was created equal. This is not mitzvahs. It's already seen where every mitzvah itself, we don't treat kavais and chamuris any differently in halacha. But I do think that there is an ideal.
That's not 100% true. Not that this is a halacha podcast, but there are differences in how we treat, like something there is luchumra and something there are about lakula.
Mission avos that says not to treat any different.
Well, our attitude of the significance is that they're all like equally significant.
Right. What I mean, when it comes to mitzvah, when it comes to halacha and the Torah, we never have this chas v'shalom type of conversation. But when you come into schools, we strive as heads of school to be as idealistic and as realistic as possible. And we both know in ourselves, without giving anything away, there are certain rules in my yeshiva that if someone steps out of bounds, I'll turn away and not call out. And there are other rules that are l'ikuva, that are incredibly important to us. And every culture is different. Maybe it's like the internet is a perfect example of a rule that in a lot of yeshivas, they need for a certain reason, but they all look the other way. During COVID, when I had my Zoom in the United States of America, there was a certain yeshiva, I won't say where, which didn't allow Zoom in their yeshiva. And a boy won on my program at night, won a big prize. Wow. And the second that the program ended, his Menahel called him to wish him mazel tov. Right.
Wow.
So
I think that's an example. Listen, ideally, I have a different situation. I'm out of town. I'm the only school in my segment, in my, with my competition, if you will. So I wouldn't make a rule like that. I don't think we have any rules that are being violated in mass, but I think in a lot of other
like a sneaker rule. A school will make a rule that you only wear certain color sneakers, right? Which I changed when I came to my yeshiva. I'm a little more liberal in that sense. Wow. So I want to try to. So as a parent, is that something? Maybe my kid was fighting for LeBron James sneakers, and I want to let him push the envelope a little. I think there's plenty of room to still follow the yeshiva's mantra as a whole, and yet still be an individual family and not feel like you're.
I just want to end off by being clear that it's not ideal. Meaning, I think we both would agree that ideally, Mitzvah Hashem, as our communities get healthier and more strong, etc., we won't have a situation like this. But given that we do, I think we have to understand it, which is really, I think the questioner was sort of asking, how is it possible that this happens? That was sort of the energy there. And I think that's why we're responding, not to say that it's a good thing.
It's a goal. It's part of being in goals. Yeah.
Add to the list.
Yes. All right. Now, Garfield, I'll get the next topic. Go.
Yes, my friend. Okay, Rabbi Schonfeld, I will now ask you another question from our ever-growing mailbag. Dear TLC, kol hakavod on both of you for talking about issues that are so important to parents. As the end of year approaches, I was wondering if you think it's appropriate that parents send gifts and money to Rebbeim and Moros. I love my children's teachers, but find this kind of open bribery and flattery dangerous, as it allows those with more means to kind of pay their way to have more access to teachers. Isn't that against the hashkafa of the Torah?
So, yes, interesting question. I'm going to try to navigate this carefully. The short answer, I think, is absolutely not. It is not against the hashkafa of the Torah. I think it is the opposite. I think it is the hashkafa of the Torah to show direct hakaras hatov and gratitude to our superheroes, to our moros, to our rebbeim. We did the garbage man and the mailman, holiday season. So kal v'chomer la'avdil, those that we entrust our children with. And it doesn't have to be, it's not about, at least as a Rebbe for me, it wasn't necessarily about the amount of money, but the expression of hakaras hatov. A beautiful letter. This woman or father is asking about the end of the year. Maybe do it at the beginning of the year. It's more impactful for you because the Rebbeim care about that relationship. Meir Stern Shlita, Rashiva of Passaic, told a friend of mine, the only shaykhia that's mutter in the Torah is giving money to Rebbeim and Moros. Wow. So I think it has extreme importance. I just know how good my Rebbeim feel when they get money, I'm being honest, and also just as excited when they get cards that are written with emotion and feeling. Don't do what a Rebbe in Yeshiva Spring Valley told me he once got. It's a fourth-year Rebbe. He got a letter from a parent that said there is no amount of money in the world that can express the amount of Hakar Satayv we have for you. Sincerely, the Goldsteins, with no money inside. I think it's important and valuable.
Let me just push back a drop and go a little deeper in what I think this person is getting at, which is, in your experience in yeshivas and around the world of chinuch, do you think people with money who are generous and really are the people who have the means to really give a lot to yeshivas and be part of the leadership because of that, do you think they get a better experience as students? They get better treatment? They get more concern from the Anhala? Do you find that the people with money have a better experience?
Do I have to answer that question?
Well, I think that's what the question is really getting at. Meaning, if the people with means are able to really express it in a way that people with not aren't, and as you called it from Rav Meir Stern, sheichad, and sheichad works because that's the whole player that tells us that sheichad works. So essentially, people with money are going to end up with a better experience. And I think the questioner is saying is hello fair. So how do you respond to that?
I'm not going to ignore that reality, but I don't think that has anything to do specifically with, or it has nothing to do with your child in yeshiva. People that have means, this is a challenge, whether it's their influence on Russia yeshiva, whether it's the influence on big yeshivas, whether it's the influence on shuls and on schools and on politics, right? Kesef Yana Sakol, right? There is, of course, an influence that money has in every single aspect of our society. And that's derbas hata maya hata daya is a reality, but I don't think it is any different. I shouldn't say this. I don't think it's any more in yeshiva than it is in any other walk of life. So do we wish that everyone would be treated perfectly equal, unrelated to whether they have means? Of course. Is that the reality? No. There's definitely a semblance of Hakar Satayv to those that help support yeshivas and shuls and Bate Midrashim and organizations. But I would have tell you, as someone that was a Rebbe for a long time, and that's someone that's a Manal Baruch Hashem now, it's not what we focus on or work on. Oh, there's a wealthy parent, so therefore we have to make sure that. No, you want to know the people that give money anywhere have sometimes more influence than we would like them to have. I think that question is the same question on a yeshiva that it is on every single walk of life within our Jewish society.
That's a fair answer. I mean, I think in yeshiva it's a little more just because they're nonprofit organizations that are so desperate for funds and so sensitive to that. But I do believe, as you're sort of saying, that's how Hashem made the world, that, you know, and for whatever reason. I also would say, not that you disagree with this, along the lines of what you're saying, is there are many ways that a family could show a Hakar Satayv without spending a lot of money. Like, especially if it's known that they're not the most wealthy people. The Rebbe knows. It's interesting. It's almost like if they're wealthy, there's an expectation that they express it with money. And if they don't, it's almost like a chisaron. It's like, why aren't you expressing it? I know you have the means. But in families where, you know, everyone knows who has a lot of money and not, generally, they bake cookies or they send a nice shachmanas or they write a nice letter, and you feel the sincerity within what they're able to do. I think that goes as far for, like you're saying, for that Talmud. For
Exactly. And that's why I'm a little bit, I don't like that pointedness of the wealthier family because, again, as I said, that's a societal challenge. But in yeshiva, the Rebbeim that get these beautiful cards and something for Shabbos, and when it comes to Purim and baby gift, it's not about the object, it's about the subject, and something that is heartfelt and given with a beautiful note. I still have a lot of notes that I got and letters from parents from 10, 15 years ago. We are low-hanging fruit as Rebbeim, as Menalim, as Moros, as teachers. We give our kishkas to these kids, literally, leiv nefesh, and we're Mizenin mention oitit, right? We're people too, and a thank you to a Rebbe, a heartfelt thank you, goes a long way and is not bribery, it's not flattery, it's appropriate.
Don't disagree. Okay, well, that was a wonderful start. Two great questions and really insightful answers. Thank you, Rabbi Schonfeld.
Rabbi Garfield, this episode is a little bit of maybe a change from the way we run the previous few episodes, in that I have the schus now of turning from an interviewer to an interviewee, that I think I'm going to become a guest moving forward as we tackle a very important topic that is dear to many families and to myself also, the topic of camps. the importance of camps. We hope to have an episode of boys' camps and girls' camps. But as an unabashed camp director and camp groupie, I'm going to now turn the reins over to you so you can ask, I guess, myself some questions. And we have this chus and the honor today of being joined by Rabbi Armo Kuessous. Rabbi Armo Kuessous is the head counselor in Camp Romo and has been for decades. And I will never forget one of the first things I said to Armo, to Rabbi Kuessous, was I grew up not having the best. I don't know if you remember this, Rabbi Kuessous. I was in Heller and Bekaita, and Romo was one of our competitors on the court, off the court. And then I worked in Romo for 2 summers. And I went over to Rabbi Kuessous and I said, I owe you an apology. And Rabbi Kuessous, you said, why? And I said, for having the wrong impression of you for 17 years. And so I've learned a lot under Rabbi Kuessous. So has many, many people in the chinuch world at large. Kuessous is an al during the year, but specifically here in the camp world. And now it's a 2-on-1. It's me and Armo versus Rabbi Garfield. Rabbi Kuessous, Baruch Haba.
Thank you so much. Ari, I know what you're doing this summer. My question is, Rabbi Rachmiel, if you go to camp this summer, if you're not, how'd you like to come to Camp Romo?
Yeah, I wish I would go to camp. It's funny. It's the kind of thing that it's definitely part of my personality, but I just never cracked that nut. So
just to be clear, Rabbi Garfield, the purpose of that question was just so that you can say, I would love to camp to Camp Romo. And then Rabbi Pfeiffer would send an email, sorry, Camp Romo was full. That was the entire purpose.
Got it. Of course it's full. Of course it's full. Especially for the Lamodei Kodesh, the teaching staff, I'm sure. Okay, so this is wonderful. Camp is a very special place. I did go to camp when I was a kid and had great memories. The camp I went to is no longer around, but the relationships that I had, this is 1987 and 88, maybe 89, that's 2 years ago. But believe it or not, the relationships that I made then, I still have many of them with the campers, the counselors, my peers. It was a very special relationship, a special time. And so I appreciate the unique experience that camp is. And I'll just say for someone who's a manal out of town, it's even more important for us because it's an opportunity for our two Talmidim to reconnect, to see the rest of the world, to connect with Talmidim from all over the country. So we're very big camp people here in Houston, and we actually try to make sure that our schedule at school fits with the camp schedule because it's so important to us. So camp is a critical piece, and it's great to have two experienced and successful camp leaders here to explore some of these points. We brainstormed, we asked our friends, colleagues, and listeners to share some questions, some common questions. We hope we have 10 common questions for boys' camps. We thought we would ask them and hear what you both have to say about these topics. So question number 1 is, camp is expensive, very expensive. Explain to me why every one of my friends says that I must send my 7th grade son to camp. What is so magical about camp that he can't get it in a local day camp or do some kind of camp mommy or home camp? Why do we have to send everyone to sleepaway camp?
Clearly, the questioner never went to camp. No, but Ari, go ahead. This is your platform. Go ahead.
I'll start. I think the first part of it is that it's not a chiyuv to go to camp. And if your family dynamic and if your child is someone that you think family trip is better, I'm not here to say that's a chiyuv to go to camp. Obviously, it's not. I'm just going to speak as someone that not only grew up in camp. Reb Gershon Kramer is my das Torah of camping, is one of my very special rebbeim. But my relationships in life, my chaverim, my inspiration to go into chinuch, so much of that was formed in camp. So to me, I'm going to not answer the question directly by saying, must I send your son to camp? I don't know. I don't know who this mother or father is. All I will say is that someone that's been going to camp almost since 1987, the value of going through a summer outside a classroom setting, but picking up and working on relationships in a real setting, in a bunk setting, on talent, whether it's athletics, whether it's the ability to sing, to act in a play, to be artistic, the self-expression that as gewaldig as our yeshiva system is, and we're all menalim, we all love what we do during the year, but it is definitely muted in the ability to self-express outside the classroom and the academic setting of our abilities to have our kids shine. And that self-esteem, self-worth, confidence that you gain in a productive, healthy environment in the summer is sometimes more effective and more impactful than it is during the year. I'm going to share one story that happened in camp a couple of years ago. Last night of camp, this was a counselor, but I think it's the same Yesod. Counselor came to me the last night of camp when all of these stories take place, 2:00 in the morning on the baseball field. And he says, Rabbi Schonfeld, can I talk to you for a moment? And he came over to me with tears in his eyes, not fake ones. He said to me an amazing thing. He said, I learned in such and such yeshiva, it's a good yeshiva. He said, and during the year, I'm a good guy. I'm not the best, I'm the middle. I learn my star, I do everything the way I'm supposed to. And I come to here and I matter in a way that I never mattered before. I wrote a song, I bunk one night activity, I had kids look up to me. And he said to me, I want to thank you not for this summer. I want to thank you for next month. But it's going to be better because of the summer. Very self-aware counselor, but a very powerful moment that I think summarizes the opportunity of camp.
Rabbi Kuessous, I'm sure you agree with the wise words of Rabbi Schonfeld, but would you add to it? What is a nuance or a focus that you get from camp?
I think Ari nailed a tremendous amount of points there. I want to just say, before I even say anything, we're all mechanchim. We all know that if we are not good leaders and that if we are not impassioned in what we do and to understand every type of constituent that we find in our schools, then, as I say, you got to get out of the kitchen. A parent is sending a child to a camp that is led with professionalism, proper staffing, proper leadership, then we can begin to answer the question. So assuming you're going to a place that is a camp set up properly, when you go to camp, and again, if you're with a good counselor in a healthy environment, and you're living in a bunk, and you have to share, and you have to deal with a conflict, solve conflicts, find solutions to different scenarios. You have to live on your own, worry about your laundry, your food, visiting day, ups and downs, all different things that come with the package, and you persevere, and then mesh it together with great people, and Shabbos, and trips, and moments. It's unbelievable what you could get out of a camp that you won't get elsewhere. And again, it's not for everybody, clearly, because the numbers and the data shows that not everyone goes. But if you're zeichet to go to camp and be matzliach, if I stop and think of what my life would have been without camp, it's hard for me to even understand it. Anything I have, Baruch Hashem, it has been because of camp. My sister's shidduch is because I went to camp. I met her husband there. I can go a whole list.
My shadchan was Rabbi Metz, who's now my shutef in Aish, who I met in camp. So
yeah, I'm just, again, does that mean, oh my gosh, everyone out there, go run to a camp? I hear the shiloh. But yes, is there benefits to going? And a seventh grader, you must go. But wow, if it's for that child, it's tremendous.
Other than the obvious, children with significant learning needs or significant emotional issues, would you say there are certain kids that are not masugal? In your experience, how would you describe a child who is not matzliach in camp?
I want to tell you something that happened I'm going to go now 14 to 18 years ago in Camp Romamu. So, Baruch Hashem, I think that we're head counselor, great division heads. We're set up to be much successful. I like to believe all of our selections of head staff were good mechanchim. But now we're coming to camp and we're dealing with behavior issues and different nuanced emotional issues. And we sat down and we said, you know what? Why don't we be proactive? We found out there was one summer where I had to call a parent and say, Mechila, I'm just asking you, I am not pointing. Does your child take medication during the year? She says, of course. I said, and now? She goes, no. For 9-10 weeks, he needs the break. I said, I really understand that sentence in terms of your emotional mommy mindset, but your child is failing here. He's exposed. It follows you. So now every case is different. But again, so what did we do? We basically were proactive and we sent out on our mailings in Rome. We're very forthright. Tell us, what do you want? It's okay. It's not going to be rejection. If you're on it, it's not. If you want to lower it, look, let's talk about this. What happens is now you receive campers who are either on or we understand the background. And now we work together. Home and school, home and camp work together.
So you would say that kids who have medications that the parents don't want to put them on the camp would not be a good fit for camp.
I also think there's an opposite type of kid. And I have family members like this that, I don't mean to be so stereotypical, they're introverts. The social, hub in Balagan, it just isn't for them. They don't enjoy, and they maybe never will, the crampiness of a bunk. I don't even mean from a Gashmi's perspective. They just are not social butterflies, and they have no problem always staying home and going on a trip or learning with Chavrusa and working in a local day camp. They get very uncomfortable in the big chaotic, which as organized as camps are, that chaotic setting isn't for them. And there are parents that I will say, I don't think camp is for your son, for sure not this year. Let's see what happens next year. So,
okay. That's a good point. That's a really good point also. I mean, some people just like to sit home with a book. I also have family members, like Shabbos for them. There's nothing better than a Shabbos alone with a book. For me, I could survive that, but that's not exactly Spitz Shabbos. Okay, new question. That was excellent. This one's a little harder, but thank God you're up to it, you two. Baruch Hashem. Should I be afraid that my child will learn inappropriate things from being in the bunk unsupervised so much? I'm very careful with who he could spend time with while at home and don't want him exposed to all types of schmutz. Now, since Rabbi Schonfeld went first on that one, we're going to have Rabbi Kuessous go first on this one.
The answer to that is absolutely. Dear parents, you need to do your due diligence. If you are going to go to a camp, you better do research. You need to ask who runs the camp, who owns the camp, what's the setup, what's the hashkafa, where does the staff come from? Interview the camp. Interview the camp. When you get positive answers, if you're satisfied and you like, then you have to take a little jump and say, you know what? If camp is I think camp is good, I'm going to trust that there's a shmir. Now, will you always know? You can't always know. Are there frumest camps, whatever frum means, or Garfield, I know you love that one. Whatever frum means, even the most frumest have problems, yes. But you have to do your homework. So it's not, should you be worried? Yes. But if you want to have that experience, by the way, could they come to our schools every single day and be exposed and who knows what? Yes. But hopefully they trust the leadership. Hopefully they trust what they understand, the mission of the yeshiva, what it stands for, the hashkafa, and we go weiter. But that, yes. But the answer is, there's always going to be things like that.
Rabbi Kuessous, I hear you saying two different things, and I want to really be clear because this is a real issue. On one hand, you're saying, yes, it's a concern. But at the same time, I feel like you're saying that camps mitigate that concern by the way they manage it. But to me, the question is, doesn't the very environment of kids alone for hours on end lend itself to schmutz talk? And you're answering...
I can tell you again, and again, I don't mean to make a pitch for Romu, and I honestly, I'm
talking from your experience. That's fine.
We're not mincing. I can tell you that Rabbi Pfeiffer, the owner, very well. Rabbi Pfeiffer puts in tremendous kaiches in vetting and checking. For all I know, he has spoken to Ari about Yeshivish Tana kids. But, we have to
I've spoken to him many times.
Okay, we have to do our diligence to check out children. That's it. It begins there and ends there. So if you fill the pot with the right clientele, the right people, then I'll buy Ritz Hashem.
So what you're saying is, just so I understand, is that in a good camp where they do proper vetting, there is not extra schmutz talk in the bunk.
Same amount that you get in shul on Shabbos, same amount in school.
No, but you're there much longer, Rabbi. You're there much longer with much less supervision.
I hear you.
Don't compare it to school. Don't compare it to shul, please.
I hear you. I would like to just tell you, again, boots on the ground, that over the years, I'm there 34 years. If I had to tell you, does Rabbi Pfeiffer speak to me on a regular basis, complaints from parents? We're a private camp that parents are calling and they've been exposed to ABC. Baruch Hashem, the minimal you're going to have a case of 2 or 3 after. But Baruch Hashem, that's not our problem. That's not our problem.
Please weigh in. I'm sorry. I wanted to let him finish, but now we want to hear from you. Go ahead.
I do think that on most of these questions, I'm waiting for one where we're going to argue fundamentally. But probably, I think the biggest question we'll argue fundamentally is a goalie who on purpose moves the goal out of place when there's a breakaway to stop a goal, which I've seen a few times in Rome. But we'll leave that for a different question.
Is that comparable to the guy who hits the 3 and his foot's on the line? Yeah. And it's really a 2, but really it's a...
But those that are listening, those that know, and I'll leave it at that. But anyways, I want to add 2 nekudas. And first of all, I do think that is the most important job. And I think the hardest job of a counselor is to manage and to be shomer. And I speak to my counselors who I have an advantage and that I'm only a second half camp. And so therefore, I have a rule that my counselors are only base medrash guys. And I'm allowed to. I have that affordability because it's Ben Azmanim. So my counselors are older, which is a built-in Mila 2-hour system. I get it. But my shmooze to my counselors, one of the biggest is that whether you like it or not, and whether you were a Mitsuyan during the year or not, the second camp starts, you're a father and a mother and a Mitsuyan. And you have standards that maybe you struggle with, that you're not allowed to even give up a hint of a struggle in the summer. And you have to be a role model and someone that has the confidence to create that environment in a bunk. And that is your entire achrayus as a counselor. I think the counselors have a huge chilek in this. And if you're able to get B'nai Torah as counselors that set, not just that have the confidence and the self-esteem to set an example and a standard in a bunk. So we don't use the word heck in our bunk at night. Like, then you have a real leg up. That's number one. Number two is, this is where I'll push back a little on Armo, and that is, yes, sending your son to a camp is, of course, there are milos and chesronos. Is there going to be less exposure to, forget schmutz, to ideals and hashkafas, new kids in a bunk, out-of-town kids, I don't know what they do out of town, right? Kids that are from the more...
Magnetos from in town.
Yes, wealthier kids, they're going to bring in a wealth. The answer is when you send your kid to a camp and he's exposed to other kids, he will be exposed to milos and chesronos of other kids. That is the mitzias. And to say it's nothing would be unfair.
There's an amazing Gemara in Shabbos, in which the Gemara tells us in the Nuns, the Gemara in the Nuns tells us that there were 4 people that died Belichet. The Gemara gives us a list of 4 people that died Belichet. And Tosfos there asks the obvious kasha. Tosfos asks that we know, ain't tzaddik ba'aretz asher yasin tov v'lo yechdo. So how can the Gemara say that if they died Belichet, if ain't tzaddik ba'aretz asher yasin tov v'lo yechdo? That's Tosfos' cap.
So one of the tweets I heard once, I think is named Rabbi Yaakov Emden, is ain't tzaddik ba'aretz asher yasin tov v'lo yechdo. You could stay in your house and not be chayte. It's very easy to stay home and do nothing and do no good. And then, you won't be exposed to anything. Live a hermit your whole life. But if you want to be an asay toiv, if you want to have incredible experiences of life, you're going to trip up. Now, I'm not condoning or saying. My point is that when you go to camp, there is, and as Rabbi Kuessous said, do your due diligence. Make sure the head counselor is responsible. Be in contact with the division head and the counselors. Speak to them often. If there's an issue, talk to the head counselor. But part of growing up is that exposure will happen at some time in some place in which your kids will hear a word that he didn't know existed beforehand. And to me, if you're in a Toradic environment and you have a counselor that's learning on Shabbos with my son and he's in second year base medrash and Torah Tamima, whatever, right? And Gavaldig, and he's going to keep up their relationship during the year. And my son is now singing Zmiris on Shabbos. So do your due diligence and be aware and have your eyes open and send your son to a camp that will take care of it.
Okay. Right. My son isn't a great athlete. He likes to play sports, but seems to have inherited his mother's genes. He is musical and creative, but not a sports guy. Am I making a mistake by sending him to sleepaway camp? Isn't sports the main currency there? Rabbi Schonfeld.
This is probably the question I get the most. The phone call that I get the most, by far, is this question. My son, it depends on the ages. He enjoys sports. He likes to play. He's not so good. What do you have for these type of kids in camp? Is he going to get lost? This question is by far the question I've gotten the most. I was a day camp for 9 years before that I ran, now in Aish. And I have almost like a copied and pasted answer. So I'll just say it. This was Mrs. Garfield. I don't know who's the athletic gene in your family.
Oh, man. Oh, shots fired.
I don't know. But my answer is that there are unique sports camps out there, and that's not what we're referring to. If you're going to a unique sports camp, fine. My answer is always that the question has truth to it. The schedule of every single mainstream yeshiva boys camp has a lot of sports. That is the currency in camp. That's how we fill our days. We're not girls' camp, in which every day is a different theme and a different song and a different dance. We play sports. So the answer is yes, there's a lot of sports in camp. That's Aleph. You're not sending your son to a boutique camp that is going to do bows and arrows and arts and crafts the whole day. However, and this is maybe each camp's different. In my camp, it happens to be, when I tell them this is maybe a pitch. Now, I could also say that our registration is closed also, so we're good. But we have a schedule in which the kids self-select part of their day. And in the afternoon, we have a special football league and a special basketball league. And then we also have, what's called the wild card, where kids do non-sports activities. And kids are able to select their own schedule. And a good camp, and a camp that really cares about the kids, will use color war and cantata and night activities to explore and to find real talent. I can tell you as a Menahel, we put on a play Purim this year. I know the 8th graders put on a play. And all I was thinking, watching these kids perform, and these kids, none of them are coming to my camp, was why I wish that kid was coming to my camp. I could use him in cantata in this role. I wish that kid was coming to a camp. He has such a nice voice. He would be in the choir. And so if your son is not an athlete, he will be part of leagues, and it's important. But if he's in the right environment, in the right camp, we will find what he's good at and maximize it to the fullest.
Got it.
I just want to introduce 2 words to the discussion that maybe weren't said. And again, as Menalim, we can relate to this. When we have opening day in school, it's not just meeting the students and giving over rules and regulations and do's and don'ts. You got to do that. But there's a vibe that you're creating within the yeshiva. If you want to create achdus and midas and derech eretz, and caring and achdus, when you're giving over that speech opening day, what comes out is so critical in terms of what you're shaping for the yeshiva for that year. In camp, that first day is huge. When the staff come and the children come, I am very careful to say, yeah, competitive, we might want to win, but who cares? It's not about the W. And we know that when Ari's day camp came from Clifton, New Jersey, walked into Romo and beat us maybe once or twice, for 3, 4, 5 seconds, it stings, but we move on. And the other word
it felt so good.
But the other word is intensity. Notice on display his competitiveness and his intensity. The other word is intensity. Seriously, if you give over intense, then what happens is you breed. The vibe that's created is this intensity got to win, and kids feel weak and feel degraded or lower than the other fellow because they don't have that skill. It's so important. I know a win is important. In the leagues, we have trophies and it's great. But you know what? Everyone hugs. Everyone loves each other. It's okay to lose. Tomorrow's another day. The next hour is another hour. Competitiveness and intensity have to be monitored carefully.
It comes natural to Rabbi Schonfeld, this lack of competitiveness. So easy for him. But Rabbi Schonfeld, he's talking about other camp directors.
You know what it is? Now that he's back in the big leagues and he's now, he was a day camp all this year. So he's kind of excited. But again, it's all
I just want to tell you that last summer, and we lost the Camp Aliyah. It's a very highly competitive, intense game in Aliyah. And not only did we lose basketball game, we were up 5 with a minute left. I wasn't the one who made a bad play, but we lost. And they won at the buzzer, literally at the buzzer. We came back to camp, and Rabbi Metz, who's my shutef, Rabbi Chaim Metz, who runs the Mishpacha program, we looked at each other and we said, you know what? It was the best night activity of the summer. And we were so proud of our healthiness. How's that? How we left the game, and for 5 seconds, it stung like very badly. I'll give you that. We came back to camp, and it was such an incredible game and you have to be able to impart that when you play. You want to win, you play hard, you play with intensity during the moment, but not to lose sight of just the awesomeness of a camp arena, of the chant, of all that goes with it.
Okay, wonderful. Most of my son's friends are going with him to the same camp. It bothers me that they all want to be together in the same bunk. Isn't the point of camp to meet new friends? How hard should I push my son to be in a different bunk with less friends so he can meet new ones? Rabbi Kuessous.
I would tell the parent, don't get involved. Call the camp and say, camp, again, assuming camp does their job well. We don't allow full classes to be together. We want exactly what you just said, the variety. But mom and dad, call the camp, throw it on the camp, and you go back to son and say, honey, the camp doesn't let more than 3 or 4 friends. I feel bad, but this is what the camp does. You shouldn't take a crisis over it. Don't hover over it. Let the camp take responsibility for it.
Very good. Rabbi Schonfeld?
Yeah, it's one of the things that the parents love to say. Oh, I want my son with the LA boys and the Toronto boys and the boys from Houston, Texas, and the boys from Miami. It's like the United Nations field that everyone loves. And at the end of the day, their son wants to be with his friends from yeshiva. That's the battle. And I get these phone calls from parents. Every camp is different, but we never put 10 kids together from the same class. Camp has its way of creating new relationships. Even if you go with your class, there's a certain just freshness to my camp friends that happen organically.
Ari, the children do. Now the children figure it out. The children figure it out.
Yes, and they have their camp friends. I tell the parents not to fight it. We try as much as we can to create this mishmash of bunks, but it's usually the other way. I don't want my kid with that kid in his class. And then I'll say, yes, but you realize then I'm going to pull you out and put them in a different bunk. That's usually the dilemma that parents face when they have specific requests of not to be with, and what's more important for a parent?
That's a great segue to the next question. And I think, Rabbi Schonfeld, this will go to you first. My son is bullied in school by a certain boy. We have it under control, but it took a lot of supervision. Will he be safe if that boy is at camp with him and even wants to be in the same bunk with him?
I just want to change, for the argument's sake, from the word bully to mean, just to avoid a conversation. What does it mean to be bullied? And who says it's your fault? There's a boy that he really doesn't get along with and he really shouldn't be with. Doesn't get along with, and we have it under control. And the boy's mean to him. I'm going to assume all of that. I get that phone call. A bunch of times. Usually it's with, how did you take that boy into the camp? It's usually how it starts. But I think this is where parents have to put their money where their mouth is. In other words, is this a parent trying to be that snowplow mom? The Heintige generation would call it a snowplow, that just trying to just get everything she wants for her son? Or is this a real factor? And usually the way I put it to the mother is, listen, this is a real issue for your son. I'll pull your son out of the bunk. Because the three friends all wanted to be together, including that boy. I've had this. So if it's a real issue for you, and of course we're going to be there on watch, and the councils will know, and the division head will know, and we'll be prepared for any instances of chisarn ibn Elam Chaveira. If it's so important to you, I'm going to pull your son out of the bunk and put him in a different bunk with great kids. And then, that's the litmus test.
My son should have to be uncomfortable because this boy is mean. Call the manal. He'll tell you that this boy has been after my son. My son does nothing. He's a kleiner madel, nice kid, no problem. This boy's a bully. You don't want to use that word because you're scared of it, because you're a manal, and you know that bullying is a word that's going to get you in trouble. So you don't want to use it. Fine. This boy is mean to my son, and because of that, my son has to go to the loser bunk? Is that what you're telling me?
So, Mrs. Garfield, Baruch Hashem, I speak to the manal often. I speak to the manal often, not all the boys. And obviously, the fact that we took Yankel into camp, we think will be positive to our camp. If I thought, basically, if you're accusing me of taking a monster into camp, I have to defend myself by saying, I obviously think that boy has positive attributes and we think he'll be matzliach. And many boys request him to be in their bunk, including your son. So I can't just recreate your environment that you want by pulling him out when his three friends that your son requested also requested him. The rest of his friends requested him. So if this is really an issue for you, I won't give him alone. I'll put someone else in his bunk. I've had this where, and then the mother or son goes, no, it's not such a big deal. Forget, let me speak to my son again. That's usually what you'll get. Or, yes, it's that important. Can you please make sure he at least has one friend with him? And we take it from there. And throughout the summer, we make sure that shalom is kept throughout the world.
Rabbi Kuessous?
Well, Aleph is, you get a phone call like that, the way you just depicted, I'm calling the yeshiva. I want to first make sure this is accurate. I am not reacting and overworking and getting all crazy if this is just a hearsay in the courtroom. If the yeshiva backs it up and it's verified, if there's a bona fide bully, as described Rabbi Garfield, then we're going to speak to the bully before the summer and say, listen, we're well aware. It's been documented in your yeshiva, A, B, and C. We're letting you know. When you get off the 42 and you walk into Camp Romu, it's a whole new set of rules. When you come into camp, A, B, C, and D. We'll take care of that part. We go to the other customer, the other child, and say, we got it covered. I don't know what goes on during the year. I feel bad for you. I heard about this and this. But we have it set up over here. We have full control of the discipline and what goes on over here. We got your back. You take it from there. Aleph is, you come into my camp, it's my home. It's my rules. It's my way or the highway, so to say. We're in charge.
What would it take for you, and I'd like you each to answer this question, to send the boy home during the year? What are the red lines that, if crossed, you would send the boy home?
During the year or in camp?
During the camp year. Camp. I meant year like the school year, the camp session.
It's a very delicate conversation. But really, I think that today, I like to use the word that every situation today with kids needs chinuch. Kids need chinuch. However, unfortunately, when it goes into the gedder of the topic that we don't want to discuss at large, it crosses lines in the area of inappropriate, the real red line. Even conversations needs chinuch. Bad language needs chinuch. My point being that when the inappropriateness is at a level of that high.
Shmut. How about Beinadim L'Chaveiro? Meaning that's schmutz is a big problem, right? What about if a kid is a bully, Taka, is mean, is fighting? Is that grounds for...
Again, so then you got to go the once, twice, thrice, the hasra, your work. If you chas v'shalom have a problem over here, we had it one time And it was all directly related to, I'm not giving his medication. And we begged, look what he's doing. I'm not giving the medication. He was home, and it was not easy because we never sent out for this. We don't do it. But sometimes you got to do
I
it.
hear you. Rabbi Schonfeld, what would you send home for?
I agree mainly. I think that in terms of an Adam Chaveroi, there's almost a practical area which, if we don't have a child under control, he can't be in camp. And that is going to sleep at night. If there is a child that cannot go to sleep at night, and there are kids like that they turn into a gremlin at 9 o'clock at night. They're nice kids, and they become gremlins starting at 9 o'clock at night, and they keep the bunk up and to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. That's, to me, the rare scenario. And others, other than the red lines of being a mahdi, right? Whatever Kuessous alluded to. But a kid who hurts someone physically to the point on purpose. I don't know. God, I've never had that. But someone who beats someone up in a real way, I don't know. That, Baruch Hashem, I've never experienced. But there has to be a baseline of ability to follow rules. And really, to me, the nights are the time that you have to have under control in camp. And Baruch Hashem, we do. And if there's a kid that can't, then you don't throw him out. Speak to the parents. Maybe you get parents to get melatonin at the camp. And eventually he sleeps in the infirmary. It's a whole litany of a process. But if there's a kid that at the end of the day cannot function in a sleep-away environment, then he can't be in a sleep-away environment.
I could see how that could slip through your vetting process because that's not something that you're experiencing in school, really. So, we wouldn't know what goes on at home.
I also think the difference between nowadays and maybe 20 years ago is you speak to any kid that's a challenging camp, you're on the phone with their parents. And you just are. The division that is, you are. It used to be you send your kids and you call them the payphone, and that was it. You didn't hear from him. A kid who's struggling with Alma Chaveroi, the parents are hopefully our partners, and they're aware, and they say, by the way, let me speak to him. And we had a kid that was a challenging camp. We had a chart with him. We made a special deal with him. And it's chinuch.
Just to piggyback, it's fascinating. I'm sure you have it, Ari. I have multiple stories where children who had issues in yeshiva, and more with Mesivta kids than elementary, that because they want Romu so badly, they want to go back to camp so badly, we were able to manipulate good behavior during the year. I had last year someone come to me, his davening would not come to davening. I mean, I can tell you a host of stories. The point being, camp could affect a child from, you could be during the year, wherever you are, whatever city you're in, he'll produce during the year because he wants to be in the summer in his camp. It's fascinating. It's unbelievable.
Wow. I was going to follow up with a question. I don't know if this is different policies about this, but about calling home. How often, how do you manage that? Do you encourage calls? Do you discourage calls? How do you guys handle that? Rabbi Kuessous first.
So we have it scheduled. It's interesting. Well, Marshall, this year we're going to start camp on Tuesday. So from Tuesday to Friday, there's absolutely no phone call for a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grader. Friday, Erev Shabbos. After Shabbos, starting from Sunday through the week, on a breakfast or a lunch or a supper, there's a schedule. I'll announce in the morning. Bunchaf Gimel has calls tonight. The older kids, 9th and 10th and Elyon, the phones are open at night. The pay phones, they're allowed to go to the phone because we treat them like little young adults. We trust. They're not. It's normal. It's called healthy and normal. But the other kids need a schedule.
So the other kids, the younger kids, it's once a week essentially, or
it's once a week. They have a phone calling time besides Erev Shabbos. And by the way, we tell the staff members, we tell the counselors very clearly, don't you give out your phone. And this is a better one. If you give out your phone and a problem comes into the camp via your phone, you're taking care of the problem. We're not taking the phone call.
You touched this is a pet peeve of mine. And that is yes. And maybe I learned through trial. The first year of Aish, we weren't so super stark about this. The biggest issue with phones is the homesick kid. They're the kid who, if you keep him away from calling home for the first 3 days, or even during the week when he lost the game and a counselor made a bad call, he's going to call home and tell his mother, my counselor's horrible, or this guy's mean to me. And if you let it disappear for a day, it disappears from his mind. So we have the similar rules. Yes, we start camp on this year on, I think, Wednesday. Now let it call home till Friday. My counselors are not allowed to give their phone to their campers. If they do, we take away their phone.
Good.
That's how tough we are. To me, it is I'm getting hives. Just thinking about that kid that is able to manipulate his counselor. I just want to go home. And then he calls his mother and he cries about whatever or complains about, whether it's the food, I think our food's amazing, but whatever it is, or just wants her to send up a package, which we officially don't let in camp. Whatever it is a sick ratio for problems. We have payphones in camp. I call on Fridays. I have Masifta kids are allowed to have phones. Kosher phones, but phones. If a Masifta kid gives his brother his phone, and it happened last year, I took it away. It is the only way to create a healthy environment in your camp is by keep the 5th and through 8th graders away from phones.
So, I'm a non-camp director, although the truth is I do run a camp in Houston, but whatever, that's not really the point. And I find it interesting, like as a parent, that you guys are so resistant to me talking to my kid while he's in camp.
I don't want to hear from my son at all.
You're paying top dollar. You're paying top dollar for us to watch your child. Go to the manicure, go on vacation. We'll see you on visiting day. It's all good.
I've never gotten a phone call from a parent by saying, Rabbi Schonfeld, I want to speak to my son more often.
Really?
No.
I'm surprised.
Ari, how about the one, they drop off the 3rd grader and you go, woo! And you find out they're on a trip around the world and now they're in Bangkok the next day. You can't even get through to them.
I mean, there are probably some parents like that. But
by the way, just to share, I have my counselors reach out to parents all the time, share nachas reports. I said for visiting day and for tips. That's I tell you, it's just smart. My counselors talk to the parents all the time, and if a kid will say, "I need to tell my mother something," could be my sister had a baby. I'll say, "Sure, have your counselor call your mother for you."
I'm curious, and we've never sort of overtly said this, but I'm curious what our listeners are going to respond to that, because as a parent, it's such a commentary to me that you're making about parenting, about the way our parents parent.
Can I know how to have a 6th grade girl in camp this summer and a 9th grade boy?
I would hope that most parents could manage a phone call with their kid without it.
Yes.
Whenever.
I want it. I love it.
Once a day without making life harder for everybody. I would think. Crazy, right?
Rabbi Kuessous, once again, Rabbi Garfield shows his non-camp colors.
Correct. But I really wonder, let me ask you guys seriously, as Menalim, would you want, when your kids go home, the father and mother to say, how was your day? What went on? Did you get any tests back? Wouldn't you want the child to share? And with that comes a reaction, right? Then the mother gets upset and they call the thing. But that's healthy, right? I think. Why is camp so different?
Day camp. That's Camp Garfield, day camp.
I have a camp. It's called Ruach.
Day camp. Camp Ruach. How about this one? Do what we're doing, and you come on visiting day, and the kid can't even talk. And then we went this, and then we had this, and on Shabbos, and I learned, I can't even breathe. The parent goes, oh my gosh. Silver platter. It's gorgeous. Doesn't get better than that. What's better, big, huge chalk bonus or a small one?
Listen, this is a vibrant conversation. I have a different perspective on it, and I don't claim to have the MS with the capital Aleph. It's a little surprising. That's all. Okay.
It's just after all the fun and games, what we're saying is textbook. There isn't a camp. The girls' camps are much tougher. Maybe we'll discuss in a different episode. Are crazy, nuts about calling home. This is the Aleph phase. This is 101 in the camping world. That
I hear you.
That don't call home as often as possible.
Okay. New topic. This one's going to go to Rabbi Schonfeld. We are spending a lot of money to send our son away to camp. Now he tells me he needs very specific and expensive clothing to keep up with the other children. Is this true? And how would you suggest we manage this?
This is probably dependent on the circles you're in, maybe the camp you go to. I think this is a bigger challenge in girls' camps. The merch and the sweatshirts and the camp gear in general. I do think, though, camp has an extreme responsibility in this. One of our biggest rules and loudest rules in our camp is we do not allow any packages to be delivered to camp ever. Now, this is
unbelievable.
What?
Go ahead.
Rule?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm a little surprised by the control.
There are exceptions, and parents will email the camp and say, my son, ran out of socks when I sent socks. And the answer is always yes. But the Friday afternoon beef jerky, the chicken platters, the food for the bunk, all of that is not allowed. And the reason why we do that is to avoid an arms race and to create an environment as much as we can. Camp is supposed to be the opposite. You're in camp, everything smells. I don't let parents into the bunk because as clean as they are, you're in camp and your laundry, if it's still your laundry at the time you get it back, right? And the food, as wonderful as it is camp food. And the goal is fakir. You shouldn't need anything in camp. We have a rule in camp. I don't let electronics in camp. And I'm pretty friendly with the head of 24/6. I'm wise, who's down my back to allow even 24/6. I don't let 24/6s in camp. I don't want the kids to be doing anything other than shakua in camp. I don't want headphones.
What about the fact, the question was more about before camp, the clothing and do you find that that's a challenge to buy tyros or whatever? I don't know what the latest is. That
most of the kids have tyros. We had a kid in my yeshiva, pre-1A kid, for Purim this year, dressed up like a yeshiva bacher, and he wore tyros to school. Pre-1A kid. I think the answer is it does depend on the camp that you choose, and different camps have different standards that all of a sudden, the kids feel the need to live up to. I have not found that in our camp, that there is I've never got a phone call from a parent. This question I have not been asked. My son is complaining to me that he has to get, so-and-so. I have just to share a story with a person. He said to his mother, Mommy, it said 12 polo shirts to bring to camp. I know this kid it happened to. And she said, yeah, you have 12 polo shirts. And he was like, no, they're not. They're Gap.
That's good.
So I haven't had that question from a parent that my son feels the pressure. And maybe, I don't think it's just my camp. I think most camps in the boys are...
Definitely it's a girls' camp thing. But let's hear Rabbi Kuessous weigh in on this one. Do you allow packages?
Baruch Hashem, we stopped this. Ari, you were there years ago, but if I would tell you what was going on Friday afternoon, Rabbi Pfeiffer, about 5 years ago, I think I'm going to say 5-6 years ago, we would have on Erev Shabbos 300 to 400 people come. And then when you would have parents calling and saying that their fathers are coming in from the city for Shabbos, and they have to go to Armo first, it was causing such a bahala. It is gone. It does not exist anymore. Friday, I can tell you, does not even protect you. This is something that the Pfeiffers and Armo, it does not exist. Baruch Hashem, it's gone. Done.
Wow. Again, what about the pre-camp purchasing? Is there pressure to buy anything? Or
it's like everything else. The kid comes home and says, everyone told me. Who told you that? Where's this data coming from? The parent has to be a parent. It's no. I have heard people say, I've heard mothers say to me, Rabbi Kuessous, we have gone to Walmart, Target, whatever it is. We buy all the stuff and it's going to get wasted and lost and ripped anyway. So why?
Right.
Why?
I got it. Okay. My 5th grade son wants to go to camp, but has not done in the past. And he doesn't do well when we go away. Me and my husband go away and he's alone. How can I know if he's old enough to go away and sleep away for so long? I think we're up to Rabbi Kuessous first for that.
I say, dear parents, please know your child. Don't experiment on us, please. If your child gets very emotional and homesick, again, if you're going to experiment and you're going away, what's the fall plan? Where we take, we love to work with homesick children. And I think that we have an amazing mahalach with that. We really, really do. And, there's the system how to do it. But if a parent is not sure, then don't send.
Can you talk a little about that system? I'm curious. What are some of the pieces of it?
You want to know? Here's the key. Here's the key to the whole thing. You have, Ari, what's the youngest grade that you have?
Coming out of 5th. We're a little older than you. Coming out of 5th.
Okay, so we have coming out of 3rd or 4th, okay? But the key is the kid comes to camp, whenever it is, you always push off and say, you're not trapped. I promise you, this child, Yishleim Yankee, you're not trapped. If it doesn't work, I promise you, I'm going to drive you to the bus station. But the concert's tomorrow night, and leagues are starting, and also on A, B, and C. If you could just give me a chance to show it to you, if you're not happy, I promise I'm going to call mommy and daddy. I don't want you to suffer. There's a back door. You see that back door over there? Go behind that back door. That's the way to figure it out. And it usually 9.5 out of 10 times.
They'll give you a few days and then beautiful. What do you say about this? Prepare when to know when a kid is ready.
This is the one that pulls on the heartstrings the most, is that homesick kid who's not ready to be away from home and is sometimes just bawling. Oh, they tear your kishkas out. And every single time, almost always, I should say, the parents know it. We're ready for it because it's this type of parent, as you said, that's unsure. The camp mother, again, each camp maybe has the person that runs it. Our camp mother is incredible, Mrs. Wennick, who deals with these boys. And as Rabbi Kuessous says, there's an anxiety and a fear factor that is triggered. So they can feel trapped and they have to know that. Avoiding calling home is a big deal because you don't want them on the phone with their mother because it usually gets their mother all sad. And usually the parents are much tougher than the camp. The parents, like, he is staying no matter what. I am not picking him up. They're much tougher than camp.
Wow.
And your goal is to, as Rabbi Kuessous said, is just to deflect. And you empathize, you validate, and then you say, hey, by the way, you have leave. And we'll talk to you after leave. Come to me tonight. Tomorrow morning, come to me. I promise I'll call your mother. Tomorrow morning, oh, your mother's not around. And 95 out of 100, they're out of it.
Beautiful.
Can I just add one little thing?
Please.
My first year in camp, I was a fourth grader. Camp will go to Toronto. It's only 1 month. 1 month boys, 1 month girls. Visiting days coming up, and I was miserable.
The way the camp should be, 1 month. Yeah.
Parents came on visiting day, and I wanted to go home. And I said, how could you not let me go home? You don't love me. How are you not taking me home?
Wow.
52 years later, how you doing?
I love it. My son has learning challenges. During the year, his school has personnel on staff who check in with him and make sure that he's doing well. How can he go to the learning groups at camp without this support? What are we up to? Rabbi Schonfeld.
The answer is you shouldn't. That's the real answer. The answer is, again, I'm being very general. So I don't know what learning challenges mean. If this is a boy that during the year learned in a smaller environment, wasn't in the main class, he's a great kid. These are the kids that need camp more than anyone else because they don't feel that success throughout the year. And really the kid has an amazing voice or he's an artist, but he can't learn. Again, I'm going to create the narrative where he can't succeed in a formal classroom setting. If you put the kid in a camp class, which is as amazing as our camp learning is, we think ours is amazing. And I was in Romo, theirs is amazing.
Do you have professional Rebbeim or do you have like young people?
Mostly, I have found, and our Rebbeim are amazing, but I have found that sometimes that young, not a counselor, not a kid, but that young person that wants to go into chinuch he's going to spend his whole summer's night seder, working on the Gemara, on the games, on the halakha. He comes in on fire as opposed to the Rebbe that just is there to collect the paycheck. Yeshivish. But he can't be in a mainstream classroom. It's not fair to him. You're asking him to do something he can't do. And hire a private Rebbe. I've been in touch with a Pfeiffer this year about private Rebbe sugya, so I'm going to leave that out of what that looks like. But there are people in camp. I'm lucky. My camp has a lot of 20-year-old Bachrim that are learning first Seder because we have older staff. We have plenty of counselors that learn with these kids. And
does that cost more money?
The answer is yes. It's a private. I don't get involved in the fees. I set them up. But remember, these are Bachrim. These are Bachrim. So a Bachar that you pay $30 for an hour, 45 minutes, for him that's enticing. It's an extra $1,000 for a parent. And it not only does it change the kid's summer by not having him get kicked out of learning groups or him learning something, it creates a kesher if you get the right chavrusa that changes his summer.
Okay. Rabbi Kuessous, what are your thoughts about this?
I'm assuming you were talking about academic challenges, right? Not emotional, academic.
Learning.
So it happens to be, Baruch Hashem, in our divisions, you have anywhere from 8 to 14 bunks in a division. So if I'm going to have 8 fifth grade bunks, 8 sixth grade, 10 sixth, 10 seventh, we divide the children Aleph, Beis, Gimel. We pretty much have a gather from the Rebbeim during the year what level they are in learning, but pretty much it's Aleph, Beis, Gimel. If you're going to have someone lower than that, it definitely becomes a problem. And what Rabbi Schonfeld was alluding to is that what we're doing this year is that if someone can prove very clearly from yeshiva that he has the system set up in yeshiva where he has a private Rebbe or whatever his system is, if that's what he needs, a private enterprise like that, so the camp will allow that if that's verified. It's done to come in and say, I want a private Rebbe, just to, that's something that we're doing away with. But someone like that would be able to fit into that category. But the groups are already set up, Aleph, Beis, Gimel.
Got it. Okay. Rabbi Schonfeld, do you set up the groups by level also? Or do you do it another way?
Level?
Like within a age group, the strength of the student, like advanced, the average, weaker?
We usually have, as they get older, the 8th graders will usually do it that way. Our learning director, Rabbi Fishelis, 5th grade Rebbe in Yeshivish Spring Valley, who's amazing. I think if you create the right incentive program, which kids need in the summer, maybe more than they do during the year, and the right consequence program, then your learning as a whole has a real chance to be matzliach. And you have to set everyone else up to succeed, really.
Okay, the last question, we're going to start with Rabbi Kuessous. It's a sensitive question, but a very important question, and I guess a good way to end, because it's so significant, which is, what do camps do to protect children from abuse in camp? Unfortunately, we know that this topic is an issue in our community, and it's been dealt with, but it's also, unfortunately, somewhat, still we hear stories. And specifically when you're dealing with teenagers, there's no background checks. They don't have like histories. Very hard to like get into which kids have this Nisayan and how. And they're spending a lot of time in different environments. So what specific things do you do as your camp to protect children? How do you ensure that? And Rabbi Kuessous, specifically, I'd be curious over the years, how has this changed? If you could contrast what you do today to what was going on 25 years ago.
Okay, so simply said, 25 years ago, unfortunately, we all know it was not a discussion anywhere. It wasn't communal. Rabbanim didn't talk about it. It was under the rug, so to say. And then it slowly started to come out, and it's been out. I'm proud to say, again, Rabbi Pfeiffer, the owner and director of Camp Romo, Kanai Ara, and Ari, you know him personally. Shlomo is so proactive. What he did about 20 years ago, sat down with Shmuel Kamenetsky. We were giving Gedorim. What is Lashon Hara? What's not Lashon Hara? We have a whole document, a document of information. We actually send out to parents role play, what parents should say to their children, what parents will tell children what is and what is not allowed. And then there's a letter signed by Shmuel that says it is not Lashon Hara. If you ever have to report A, B, C, D, and E, that goes out to parents. Parents have the conversation. We come to camp the first day by orientation. We have different segments for orientation. We give out this piece of paper and we save it pamali straight to the staff members. These children, all 700 of them, have been prepared by their parents. They have been spoken to. They are well aware and well prepared, and they know that the following things are not allowed. It says over here, they have been told that they are allowed to talk about it and go report it to any adult in the camp. We're just letting you know that these are the things that we expect that we don't expect. My point being the communication, the directives is so clear and so unabashed, and it's straightforward laid out that there's no wiggle room for any type of, we hope. And we go forward from there. And what we say is, the Lashon we say is, people say cameras, cameras, cameras. But Pfeiffer's line is, we have in the camp 1,000 people, and each of them, Mirza Hashem, have 2 eyeballs. 2,000 eyeballs is a lot of cameras. So if you see, you got to say. And Baruch Hashem, and this is what goes on. And parents have been coached and trained. These are uncomfortable conversations. And a parent can say, well, what do I even say? It's all delineated. It's gorgeous.
How about in terms of the training, the selection and training of the counselors?
Again, you have yeshivas. You have Baruch Hashem. You have a farm team. You have most of my counselors, 90% of my counselors gone to the system. We know who they are. We know the yeshivas. We see them as a young Rumbanitza, which is a 9th and 10th grader, a camper, then a Masifta boy. They come in counsel. You really know who you're getting. And then if it's a new person, I'll tell you the truth right now. I'm waiting on accepting 3 people for the last 6-7 weeks because I've been waiting for callbacks. I've been babysitting it. Unless I hear from someone, I'm not going to just take someone, even though it looks great on an interview.
Got it. Okay.
So just in terms of the background checks, as a camp director, not only as a head counselor, I know that legally you have to do background checks, legal background checks on your staff members, and they're done for counters. I imagine that Rabbi Pfeiffer does them in Romo as well. But these are, as you said, these are kids.
Yeah, they're not going to have a record because
they're not going to have a record. But there is a legal background check that is required. But, when I speak to my counselors, and depending on the years, there have been years where I brought in Project Sarah, took a course this year myself with a bunch of head counselors and then owners and directors in camp, another refresher course on abuse. There have been years that we brought in, as a refresher to our staff from Project Sarah itself, which is similar organizations. But yes, we give very similar conversations we have with our staff beforehand, the night before, the big, the Erev camp. One of the things I tell my staff members is that all of these rules that we have in place are there to protect you, not hurt you. And the reason why you're not allowed to touch a kid below his shoulder is, even though, come on, why can't I pat a kid in the back? Why can't I, what's wrong with tickling a kid, right? Maybe in a perfect world and in a safe and in a normal world, maybe potentially nothing, but you set yourself up, and as a menahel, I do this with your baby, we have the same conversations. You set yourself up to be falsely accused or accused in a way that we will not be able to take your side innocently. And so therefore, all the rules that we have in place, which most camps today, Baruch Hashem, it's very different than it was 20 years ago. I wasn't a head counselor 20 years ago, but it's standard across the board of not being alone with a kid ever in a room, not taking a kid off grounds ever. All of these types of, the way
do you have these policies written up?
Every camp does, yes. Okay. They all do. And to have the conversation with the staff member, it's always the same sprach. I say to my staff members, If I didn't trust you, you wouldn't be in this room. So don't take this conversation as a chashash. Oh my gosh, Rabbi Schonfeld, what do you think of me? These are in place to protect the kids and you. I make it that we're to the staff. I'm here to protect you. And therefore, if you ever put yourself in a compromised situation, you're out because you didn't set yourself up for success. I think parents are much more educated today. I don't know of a parent, responsible parent, that does not have a conversation with his kid before going to camp anymore. That doesn't exist. We're past the conversation of what if the kids don't know? Every parent does. And if they didn't, shame on them. And I just think we're in a much healthier place now than we were.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both. This was a great conversation. And I think we explored a lot of the aspects of sending kids away and what's involved and what to look out for. And it really is encouraging that we have such wonderful people running two of the camps. I'm sorry they're full already, but
all kidding aside, if you find yourself on the East Coast in the summer, no, really, if you're up in the country, anything, I would love to host you. I'll drive you to Asia. I'll drive you over to Ari to visit Ari.
Near each other? Are your camps near each other?
It's not so bad, right? Not so, right?
20 minutes.
I want to see when you guys play each other in basketball. I want to know that day.
We're not playing Rome with this year.
Oh, Chet, are you scared?
No, you know what it is? We decided this year we want to be more competitive and look for,
Division 3.
Ari is the best.
All right, thank you. All right, Rabbi Schonfeld. So now I'd ask you to come back onto this side of the counter. And
I have to say, Rabbi Garfield, that those two people that we interviewed were just, spectacular, I think.
Yeah, if I had to choose a camp, I don't know. It would be a hard one. One of them has so much experience. The other guy is very competitive. I don't know. But bottom line is that, it really is wonderful to hear both of you speak about how much thought and care goes into each aspect of the camp. It's really great. Let's get to our next issue and topic, which is going to be the girls' camp.
It's now our pleasure to welcome to the Learning Curve Mrs. Debbie Selengut. Mrs. Selengut, who's the assistant principal of Benos Bracha of Passaic.
Shout out to Passaic. And I have to be maybe extra nice so my kids next year could be placed in the right classes. And the camp mother, for our purposes, more importantly, the camp mother at Camp Benos Ma'arava. Mrs. Selengut, Bruchim Habayim and welcome.
Thank you so much. This is going to be fun. It's getting me into the camp mode.
Yeah, it's never too early. How long have you been involved in camps for?
I've been in camps since I was in 4th grade.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How long
So
have I
that's
been
20,
involved?
you're talking 22 years,
20
right?
years, that's
22
it.
years.
I was actually a camp mother in a boys' camp for a few years when my husband was a division head in Camp Kuessous, which is no longer around.
Wow. Camp Kessler is in Livingston Manor, next door to now Ruach Chaim was Bekaito where I went. Wow.
Really?
Beautiful campus. Beautiful, stunning 5-star campus.
Beautiful. And then actually in Avram Chaim Heller in a boys' camp. Being a camp mother in a boys' camp is really different than being a camp mother in a girls' camp. What can I tell you? But I've been in camps all my life, pretty much.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so we have some questions of common concerns and issues, and I'll start and ask you the first one, and we'll take it from there.
Amazing.
Okay. Camp is expensive, very expensive. Explain to me why every one of my friends says that I must send my 7th grade daughter to camp. What's so magical about camp that she can't get it from a local day camp or spending time with her family?
Right.
So before you answer, Mrs. Selengut, I just want to let you know, we asked the exact same question to Rabbi Armo Kuessous.
Right.
So we'll obviously measure what you said, which one's better. We had a conversation about boys' camp, and now we're on girls' camps.
I'm actually curious, like if we're going to have different reasonings and different things about why I feel like it adds so much to a child's life and a child's development. So I first want to say that I believe it's great. I believe camp is magic. I don't believe, and I think, if I'm honest, I don't believe that it's for every child in the whole world. And I think, we'll get into that conversation. I don't know that every child is cut out for sleepaway camp. I don't know that every child's ready for sleepaway camp. I believe that there's something magic about camp. I believe that there's an energy that everybody just puts in, from every counselor to every staff member to every administrator. There's a certain energy that actually I don't think could be duplicated in the 10 months of school, because I don't think anyone can operate at that level of energy throughout the year. So there's an unusual amount of excitement, unusual amount of investment there.
Yeah, hearing the shmooze once from Mashgiach Elsman in Yeshiva.
Yeah.
And the shmooze was, for all those bachrim that say, I have a hard time getting up for Shacharis in the morning. Rabbi, I'm just too tired. He said 2 weeks ago, after 2 nights of color war, you were up till 4 a.m. every night, and you had to wake up your bunk for Shacharis, and you got up. So this is the of camp. There's an energy that just, and the answer is, Randy, you don't know how a Chashav color war is. Right?
Definitely. My own married children will say, Ma, you have your summer voice. There's a summer voice. There just is. What should I say? There's just a summer voice. So let's just go back to why it's so important. If camp is utilized correctly by the parents and by the children, there's a tremendous amount of independence kids can have. There's a tremendous amount of problem solving that they can learn. And we'll talk probably about calling home and how that works and packages and things like that. They can learn money management if the parents are responsible and don't just keep throwing money into canteen accounts. They can learn how to manage difficult bunkmates. They can learn how to manage kids from new communities, different levels of religiosity, different levels of different financial backgrounds, and learn how to get along with those kids. Even I work in Myrava, which is in Marshall, Indiana. Even the traveling is new for a lot of kids. They've never been on a plane. They've never been in an airport. Just managing delays, managing lost luggage. These are things that can bring out a tremendous amount in kids. It opens up new horizons to them. It can give them a little space from their families, which is a tremendously wonderful thing. I don't know if this is where you want to talk about it, but there are a lot of kids. We always say the camp is the great equalizer. Kids can get away from a lot of really stressful situations in their homes, whether they're family members that aren't well, whether there's a lot of tension. We don't have to go into specifics, but you come to camp and you're just like a different person. I could just be me. I want to tell you a little secret. It works for the staff members too. We go to camp and it's just like me somewhere else. I'm away from my job, possibly. The children could be away from siblings that are struggling, not well, parents that are going through difficult stages. And there's something about just being able to see yourself in a new light. And here, I'm not the one whose baby's always in the hospital. I'm not the one whose parents are going through this. And I'm not the one whose brother's known in town as this. I'm just me. And there's something so valuable for the children to get to see themselves in another light.
I think this segues into the next question because it's almost maybe a criticism or a critique or ha'ara that I think I run a boys' camp. I have extreme negias in the value of camp. And obviously, I agree with almost everything you're saying. Girls have a specific challenge. And you said the beauty of camp is I can just be me. Then there's the challenge, though, of conforming to the level that everyone's bringing to camp. And again, I have to just put this out there. I have a 12-year-old daughter who is going to Camp Myrava this summer. So I have to, cards on the table. I want good plunk placement. I think my daughter, Sarah, is amazing. But you'll get this.
I don't want my daughter with Schonfeld's kid. I heard that she's not a good influence.
Don't worry, I saw it in the notes already. Don't worry.
Yeah, no out-of-town bunks for us. But anyways, everyone has it. And I want to read you, I'm not going to say the name of the camp, but a camp sent out an email, a girls' camp, that said, I'm not going to read the whole email because I don't want to give the whole thing, but it said, "Dear parents, we want to let you know of a new policy. In an effort to diminish unnecessary spending and social pressure, Camp So-and-so Shabbos attire will be limited to one outfit throughout the duration of Shabbos. Friday night clothing should be worn on Shabbos day as well." Blah, blah, stuff like that. That seems to me was a reaction to this arms race that exists, I think, more in the girls and the boys, that I must have this merch swag. And do girls' camps feed into it more by the camp sweater and the camp purse and the camp?
Also in school, there's a dress code, right? They have to wear very specific clothing. In camp, every day is a new adventure.
So here we talk about camp is where I can get away and just be me. But if I'm wearing the same, and I don't know what they're called, so I'm not going to talk slinky skirts. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble.
That was a very good guess.
Okay, good. But if I have to get this level of clothing that girls can be a little bit more susceptible to than boys, how does a girls' camp navigate and manage that other than maybe doing this, making strict rules of what girls can bring to camp?
Whichever camp that is, I want to applaud them for looking at a problem and looking for a solution. I don't know that every camp has that problem, and I don't know what they're going to do with the first girl that spills her chicken soup on her skirt Friday night, but I'll figure that out. Sometimes when we talk about this competition thing, and I think working in girls, like, it comes up a lot. I'm always cautious that before we throw the kids or the camps or anyone under the bus, we have to look at ourselves. And we have to say, we have to have, as mothers, as women, we have to have the right XYZ, and we have to look the right way, and we have to have the right clothes and the right shaitels and the right houses. sometimes we look at the kids and we want to figure out this competition issue with the kids, but we're not really looking at the source of it. I have a friend that sells makeup, and she says, I have to carry 100 shades of lipstick, even though everybody buys the same 4, right?
Right.
Because that's how we are as women. So we can look at the kids and we can work on ways to minimize the competition. We have to take a look, if we're going to be honest, at the big picture. But for our conversation, if you want to talk about camp, we're going to look about camp. There is a security in wearing the right thing. I think that we would all say that if we're honest, men and ladies, right? There's a security in wearing the right thing. So I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing a lot of double-breasted suits, right, coming our way, because that seems to be the new look, right? So it exists. We live in a society where we want to look the right.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first. Wow.
You heard it here first. From Passaic, no less, right? Girls want to have the right look. They want to feel comfortable. It's just a human condition. I think it's real. I think it exists. I think every parent has to know their child and how much of that's going to play a role. There are kids that are maybe a little more, or I don't want to say more secure, but less affected by that. And it's not going to mean as much. And there are children that really need that. They really need that just to get their footing straight. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's an okay thing, as long as it's not taken to an extreme. I don't have a problem with, first of all, in general, I try to say yes to children as much as possible. And I think that this is not a psychology podcast, but I think that we have to save our nose for some really big things. So I don't think parents should get hung up on all the details. However, there is a point at which, and this is a chinuch podcast, so there is a point in which you might want to say you might want to use some of your money towards that, or you might want to earn that, because that's really something that I think is excessive. Would you be willing to put in $20 towards that? Whatever it is. I feel like it's a general question. I'm giving you a general answer. And then we have to work out the fine points of it.
Would you indulge your daughter if she came to you and said, I'm getting ready for camp, I need to spend an extra $500, or I don't know what the standards are for a slinky skirt? Is that what you said? Slinky?
Yeah, slinky. It's okay.
Yeah. Would you say that's a legitimate sayrich? Like, you don't want her to be a loser.
Right. I don't want her to be a loser. I'll just put I don't know how old your daughters are, but they're not $500, right? They're not. They're like 50. So
no, for one, but it's a whole repertoire.
100%. I feel like we have to know what's normal. And sometimes I'll give you an interesting situation. A mother called me last night. She has a 13-year-old boy. Everyone has an e-bike. Everybody has an e-bike.
Here too, here included. Only had a small fire once with it, so we're fine.
Right.
Yes.
So she asked me, what should I do? So what should I do with it? There's a lot of questions surrounding that question, right? There's a lot of questions surrounding that question. Where is your kid socially? Where is your kid? I'll tell you something interesting. Many years ago, one of my oldest sons wanted to collect baseball cards. And my husband and I had a little bit of a moral issue with baseball cards and baseball players. And we went to talk to our son's Benal, Rabbi Rosenzweig, who's a mumcha in children and mumcha in boys. And he said to us, and we told him why yes, why no. He said, Rabbi Moshe Grylak, your kid has no shaykhs to sports. He's like a little nerdy. If you buy him the cards, at least he'll have what to talk about. And you have nothing to worry about because he loses everything anyway. Don't worry about it. The question's a very personal question based on the child. If you feel it's excessive, again, talk to your child, and maybe they do need to chip in some money. Maybe they want to use some birthday money towards it. But I don't think it's an all or nothing question. And I think that a child should come to camp if it will give her a level of security that she's wearing the right thing. When I go to a wedding, I want to make sure I'm wearing the right thing. And when you go to a wedding, I'm assuming you want to be wearing the right thing.
Right.
It's just a feeling of security. It's okay. It's okay. They have to grow into feeling good enough about themselves that it doesn't matter. It's not something we could force on them. You should feel good enough about yourself that you don't need it. I don't think we can force that on the children. I think it's something that we build them from the inside. They're going to be able to move away from attaching so much. So you're asking me a question about camp, but it's a bigger question than that.
Got it. Wonderful. My daughter is a picky eater. She is very self-conscious about what she eats and how she looks and feels.
Right.
Is there anything that I could ask from camp to help promote healthy eating, or am I wasting my breath?
Obviously, you're talking to the camp mother, so this is a real specific question that I get all the time. So let me just tell you how our camp works. I think a lot of camps work like this. They send out a camp mother card. Now we do it online. And I get a lot of these camp mother cards before camp with a lot of information the parents want me to know about their children in general. Sometimes it's a hard situation at home. Sometimes it's something that the parents want me to know about. Sometimes it's a health issue. Sometimes it's a bedwetting issue. Sometimes it's a social issue. Sometimes it's a food issue. Sometimes the child's a picky eater. Sometimes the child has eating struggles, disorderly eating issues. And all those situations come my way. We have gluten-free, we have nut-free, we have girls that are allergic to fish, we have girls that are allergic to red dye number 2. Like, we have everything in camp. Right. And we work very hard to make the kids comfortable. I will tell you that everything and everybody has moved towards a healthier lifestyle. So I think the camps are reflecting that, at least the girls' camps. There really are healthy foods at every meal. And also, we actually have a cook, a chef, that will make a gluten-free option for every option with gluten. If there's noodles, there's gluten-free noodles. If there's cholent, there's gluten-free cholent.
We also do it in my camp. And just to highlight this, I got an email recently about a mother that, unfortunately, her son, she thinks was diagnosed with celiac. And she wrote, can he still come to camp? It's brand new to her. Like, you could tell in the email. Besides, it's a life-changing diagnosis. Baruch Hashem, you can live long and healthy lives with celiac. But she was like, do I have to pull him out of camp? And it was so reassuring to her that my response to her was, Mrs. So-and-so, we have a gluten-free kitchen, basically. Our chef, and as I said, my rabbi does the same thing. I think most camps, by every meal is an option. One of our division heads is gluten-free. Our camp mother will buy, like, your son won't even realize that 2 days into camp. And her response back was, she was very thankful, but it was such a difference between 20 years ago and today.
Absolutely. And some girls are very weight conscious. There are girls that have lost weight and they want to keep it off in camp. There's somebody to talk to in the camp about that. There's someone that will help your daughter. There's always people going shopping. There's always fruits and vegetables. I just want to say 2 more things just about food. The way the question was worded was actually interesting. There are kids that are really very particular. They really are. And they really won't eat things that their mother doesn't make.
That their mother does make, yeah.
But if it's a degree where you really think there's nothing that can make my daughter happy, that goes back to what we spoke about originally. Like, that might be a readiness question for camp altogether, because that just might be an adapting question. If my kid's not going to eat anything, I can't take responsibility for a girl that's in the sun and playing sports and outside and refuses to eat. We've had situations like that. And I want to just throw in one more thing about food. And that is canteen. Okay. I just want to talk about canteen for a second. One of the things I do as camp mother is I do look at the balances of what kids are spending in the canteen. I do. Yeah, because we've had over the years children that are buying a lot of stuff to make friends. And they'll bring kids to the canteen and treat everybody to something really expensive because they think they're going to buy friends like that. There is a canteen piece of camp that is actually important if kids are overspending. We have kids like in custody battles that no one's paying the canteen. I'm supposed to pay for camp, but I paid for camp. I'm not paying for canteen. So there's
camp linked to a kid walked over to me in 8th grade and he said, Rabbi Schonfeld, here's $50. My meiser money for my bar mitzvah. I don't want to know who. Find a boy that doesn't have canteen money and give it to him for his canteen. 8th grader. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But we don't do it. You actually will keep
follow that guy. Follow that guy for 20 years. He's got to be something.
Yeah, he's a special kid. He's a chashuva kid.
Yeah.
But you keep tabs on their canteen? Wow, I wonder, maybe I'm naive, but we don't do that.
I get an alert if the balance is rising too high, because then I want to look at why. Either the child's living on junk, and then we have to figure out, like, why isn't she eating enough? There's so much food. Or is she buying friends, or what's going on with that? Because the canteen will alert me if it hits.
The next question, Mr. Selengut, is one that we asked Armo, and by Garfield, his eyes must popped out of his head. He thought that the camps are hiding, some old and nefarious activity. I think you're going to say the same, I hope, as I have the same. It better be, because I don't want to hear from my daughter this summer, but it better be the same. But it's a question about calling home, and that it seems to be boys' camps, girls' camp have an extremely strict policy about girls. My daughter last year, first half, was in a camp, an amazing camp, Chaviva. And there was actually a firing camp, right? And Baruch Hashem, everyone's fine. It was wonderful. And they didn't let the kids call home. And it was amazing to me, because if she would have called home, she would have said, pick me up. I'm scared. I need to go home. So explain to Rabbi Garfield, who thinks we're all hiding something, the idea behind a strict, very strict, no call home policy. I want to hear how my daughter's doing.
I want to say something. Just a B of that situation is that your daughter would have called home, and B, probably 80% of the mothers would have been at the camp to pick them up. So this phone policy is really, there's 2 sides to this, okay? I want to just say something about the phone policy in general, okay, before we get to the hiding thing part. One of the best things about camp is be here. Just be here. Be in camp. We have phone policies for the staff, for the counselors. because we want them to be here. This is amazing. This is gorgeous. This is my Rabu Masach Hashem. This is away from everything. This is incredible. Just be here. Be with your friends. Don't be on the phone. In general, we limit the phones. Every bunk has a slot, actually, to call home once a week. And outside of that slot, they're going to have to stand in line forever at rest hour. And we, Dafka, don't have an awning there because we don't want them standing there. Let them just get hot and uncomfortable and stop waiting, right? Okay, so here's the phone policy. The phone policy is that without it, no one has time to adjust, not mothers and not daughters. Nobody has time to adjust. I'm going to just tell you how my summer is structured, okay? There's 4 weeks of camp. Week 1 is homesick. Week 2 is hysterical mothers because the daughters call home week 2. Week 3 is an awesome week. And week 4 is everyone's anxiety about going home. That is Mrs. Selengut summer.
Sounds like an absolute party.
Yes.
When is Klonopin? What week is Klonopin?
By day 9 or 10, I make myself a graduation party from homesickness. Baruch Hashem, we're done. And then we just deal with all the hysterical mothers whose daughters are calling home about her floafer broke. Like all these things that there's not like one adult in camp that can actually manage these things. So restrictive calling home is to really let your daughter be in camp. What should your daughter do when she's homesick? Guess what? There's a lot of great adults in camp to talk to. There's great counselors. Rabbi Schonfeld, you know this because you're in camp. We're also turning our counselors into leaders. This is a great opportunity for counselors. We want the counselors to talk to homesick children. We want the counselors to talk to a girl who can't find her toothpaste and whose shampoo opened up in her luggage and who can't find her granola bars and whatever other calamities happen, right? We want the counselors to learn how to problem solve. My job as the camp mother is to help train the counselors how to problem solve to turn them into future camp mothers, right? But if everybody's calling home every time their shampoo opens, then we're not training kids at all. Then we've just gone back to question number 1, which is this really expensive expense of camp. And I am busy with my kids' shampoo and conditioner that open, for $3,000. Could someone please figure out the shampoo situation, right? So we're really teaching the kids how to problem solve, and we're teaching the mothers how to take a step back. Wow, what a concept, right? We're teaching the mothers to take a step back and realize that their daughters really are capable of doing a lot of these things. By the time the girls call home, I'm being a little sarcastic, but by the time the girls call home at the end of a week, they've actually figured out a lot of things. They figured out that it's not so scary to sleep at a top bunk. They figured out what to do with their Amazon boxes. They figured out what to do.
Let Amazon boxes in camp?
For the first week. That's it. 1 week.
Wow.
1 week. We do. I'll tell you why we do it, because we travel.
How does that put you on the Yeshivish scale of camps? Because Garfield has an app that rates camps in Yeshivishness.
I only do schools.
Oh, he only does schools?
Yeah. No, I'll tell you why we do it, because the girls fly generally to camp, and there's so much they can't bring because of the luggage restrictions. So we let the mothers. They let it ship everything. But we're letting the mothers see their daughters as being able to cope. And we're letting the girls actually figure out there's another answer to my problems besides my mommy. There really is. There's another answer.
I'm not saying that if I was running a camp, I would have a different position. Okay, I'm new to this. I'm only in the school space, so I'm not here to make a final judgment. I'm just reacting to what comes to mind when I hear it, which is the following. The way a school approaches parents is very much a partnership, because parents know things about their kids. Kids report things that happen during the school day. I don't necessarily mean safety concerns, although if there, God forbid, was a safety concern, probably the parents often would find out about it. But even just bad things that happen, it's like a safety net that the parents talk to their kids. And it's helpful to us when parents call and share perspectives about teachers or behaviors or social issues. And if I didn't have that, if let's say, for whatever reason, in a school setting, I would have a rule that you can't talk to your parents about school. Now, in a certain way, right, don't worry, it's only audio. In a certain way, that would make my life easier. But in reality, I think it would hurt the children's education. I think that parents, their voice really helps us together get it right. And it makes me a little uncomfortable that you have children, essentially children counselors, they're really children. You have some adults there, but there's so much time where our children, our young children, are unsupervised by adults. Things happen, even if they're supervised by adults, they're not their parents. with all due respect to the wonderful adults, just like I'm in chinuch. And the fact that you don't have that extra layer of communication with the parent, to me, is like a liability, is a chisaron.
Right. I want to tell you something. It's not a perfect system. It's not a perfect system. Here's what we do to try to fill in the holes that you're talking about, because you bring up some important things. So first of all, like I said, I have a heads up before camp of a lot of things I'm looking for. So I'm on the ground. This is what I do all day long. That's one of the best things about being away. Yeah. So I know who I'm looking for in terms of social issues. I know who I'm looking for in terms of having a hard time getting along with people. I'm looking for anxiety. I'm looking to see which kids really are eating and which aren't eating. I'm looking for kids that are on medications. That we didn't even talk about the whole medication piece. That's a big piece of camp. So there's a lot of things that I have a heads up. During that week, I'm in touch with parents. I will tell a parent if a child is very homesick, I'm not going to give it a week so a parent can call them and say, I wish if I would have talked to her on day 3, I'm telling you I could have helped her. Very often that is the case. Very often, really, the child needs a conversation with their parents. And I'll call a parent and say, I know homesickness, but this is a lot. And do you want me to handle it? Or would you like to talk to your child? So there's not like there's no communication between the camp and the parent. There's a tremendous amount of conversation. But we're trying to manage so that the child can, you know how valuable it is for a child to be able to speak to somebody and say, you know what, I'm having a hard time. I'll give you a case in point, okay? A girl goes to camp in 2023, okay? She makes friends. During this school year, they're in touch. They have a Shabbaton in Lakewood and everybody goes. They're on the phone. They requested each other. They come to camp 2024 and things look different. It's not the same. I thought this girl was my friend. We even requested each other. Last summer, we were inseparable. But my friend came with some new friends and I don't have her anymore. So I requested this bunk. I requested this girl and I don't have anybody here, right? This happens a lot where things don't look on the ground like they looked in the winter. They looked on those request sheets. So now what? So choice A is call my mommy, call my mother. Choice B is, can I express myself? Can I talk to Mrs. Selengut? Can I talk to a counselor? Possibly, if the girl's a Chicago girl, possibly there's a staff member that's from Chicago that she recognizes. And she go to her and say, this is really hard for me. Let's say you were a parent in my camp, Rabbi Garfield. This is how I would explain it to you. Give us the opportunity to give your child the opportunity to learn to express yourself and to learn to talk about it. My eyes are on your child, especially if you gave me the heads up that they should be on your child. There are plenty of parents that will write on that. She's really nervous about camp. It's the first time she's going. Please keep an eye on her. And I will send the parent an email the first week, all smiles, Baruch Hashem. Or you know what? Adjusting. Or is there a time we could talk?
Just to piggyback, and Mr. Selengut said that in my camp, it's similar in the sense that we speak to the parents all the time, the division heads, the counselors, myself, especially if an issue comes up. Well, speak to the parents in the first few days. That's all we're doing is speaking to usually homesick parents, kids that are disappointed they're in the wrong bunk, things of that nature. And throughout the year, we'll give heads up. I've called the camp beforehand as a parent, heads up about this about my child, that about my child.
I would think that a healthy parent has the ability to help their child problem solve a bunk situation as well as Mrs. Selengut could, if not better.
But they don't understand the situation necessarily, and they don't see it on the ground. They also don't know their daughter's piece in it. One of the things that I do, just in case you want to know what a camp mother does, when I was in a boys' camp, I actually had to cut nails, okay? We don't do that in my rabbi, okay? I was like, glorious. Okay. In a girls' camp, every morning, I'm in every single bunk because I check cleanup. It's a lot of fun. I go into every bunk every day. So
Prize for best in cleanup. What's the prize in best in cleanup?
first of all, I have a song. That's one thing. I have a song.
Okay.
I have a song. And then we have all kinds
girls' camps. Wow, our girls' camps different than boys' camps. Imagine if business said, hey, Rabbi Fogel, what's your problem? I have a song, guys. Yeah, that will work.
Do you know the best mark you can get in cleanup? What would you say is the best mark you can get in cleanup?
10.
Pesachdik.
Oh, my gosh.
That's the best mark you can get in cleanup. Is Pesachdik.
How many girls are you responsible for?
About 500.
How many children are you blessed to have in your own life? Yeah.
I have 8 children, kind of all married.
Imagine if you had 500. You think you could give them the focus that they need?
You know what? I think I can give them a level of focus that camp needs.
500 kids?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time with this. I feel that parents are the best advocates and they understand their kids and they're not all psycho, going to come crying. I don't know. And
their kid needs to scrape their knee and not run to mommy.
It's normal. The mommy says when they call, you deal with it. Wasn't Selengut going to say if they scrape their knee? She'll also say bubula.
She means well. He means well.
Mrs. Selengut's also going to say bubula. She's not going to say deal with it.
I am.
If the kid comes to her.
I am. No, I'm going to say bubula, deal with it. No, I'm just.
Yeah. No, just like a parent would.
Right.
So you're a really good parent, mazel tov. But I'm also a good parent, and I want to be the parent of my child.
But you know what? You develop a relationship with parents over the years. And if you're in a camp for a while, people do trust you. And that's a great feeling when someone says, you know what? I trust your take. When I say to a parent, I'm telling you, it's better if she doesn't call home for 2 days. Can you trust me? Sometimes a parent will say, I trust you. And sometimes a parent will say, I know better. And I say, I leave it to you. I leave it to you.
The summary, to me, is the proof is in the pudding. And that is that the mitzias is, the reality is, the parents do not complain that they can't speak to their children a lot. They love the independence from their child and the independence of their child. And this system with Rabbi Garfield's nice little ta'aras, this system has proven to be...
He loves it. He loves it. Go ahead, Rabbi Schonfeld.
Everyone's happy. Everyone loves this setup.
Right,
So
right. I will just add on one more PS that
if
because
you know, you
of
know.
what Rabbi Schonfeld is saying, because the parents so much don't want these incessant phone calls from their children, we have a really strict policy with the staff, meaning when our staff gets their phones back on Thursday night, they are not allowed to give their phones to a camper because the parent will say, she's calling me from all these random numbers. She's calling me all the time. We have a very strict policy. How old's your oldest daughter, Rabbi Garfield?
16.
Great. She can be a staff member next year. You're going to see that it's going to work. You're going to see that it's going to work.
I have kids in camp. I have a bunch of girls in camp. I don't even know the policy.
How often do you speak to your daughters?
I have no clue. I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know the policy. But if they want to talk to me, I want to talk to them. Anytime, day or night, I want to be available to my child. Not to poo them. We like to talk. I love my kids. I love to talk to them every day. They're wonderful. I want to hear about what's going on. I want to problem solve. If they bang their knee, I want to be there. But I would just
now, and you're bored in the summer. Yeah.
I would just like to make a suggestion, and this is just a thought. Put it out there for what it's worth. Why don't you have the parents sign up in the beginning? I want my kid to call once a week, 3 times, whatever it is. And then if the parents don't want to hear from their kid, you can respect that. I don't think they should be fired from being parents, but that's a different thing. And if they want to hear from their kid, let them hear from their kid. And it's a problem. Then the camp mother calls and says, it's a problem.
I have a great system. Every parent could buy like a Rav-Kav, okay? And they can load it up with how many minutes they want to do to their kid in the summer. Exactly. And the kid comes in with a Rav-Kav, and like when they use up their 100 minutes, like it's Goodbye Charlie.
Yeah. I would give my kid 3,000 minutes or whatever. But yeah, if you're saying parents get upset that their kids are calling, okay, so that parent, they shouldn't be able to call. But a parent who wants to speak to their kid, show them how you throw.
Parents recognize the value of their child not calling.
So great. So then they don't have to sign up.
I know that we want to go into questions. I want to just put this under the umbrella of communication between parents and kids. Meaning if there's in general great communication, just back to my bunk every morning and clean up. Anytime my kid has a really neat bed or really neat shelves, I take a picture of them. I email it that second from the bunk, them standing next to their shelves, them standing next to their bed.
Wow.
And send it to the parents. So their parents are getting pictures of the kids all the time from camp.
Yep.
So I think it's general good communication. What you're saying is not going to be as intense.
Okay, moving on.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. We'll move off the 7th because we already discussed it a little bit. So you'll take 5, I'll take 6.
Okay. Number 5. I think it's pronounced clickiness. Is that a word? Clickiness fear. Most of my daughter's friends are going with her to the same bunk. It bothers me that they all want to be together in the same bunk. Isn't the point of camp to meet new friends? How hard should I push my child to be in a different bunk with less friends they can meet new ones?
So I think it's a great question. I think it also goes back a lot to your child. Who is your child? Right. Meaning, how much security do they need? Are they ready to open themselves up? And I think it's a good question for the camp also by Garfield. How much, let's say, I don't know what boys' bunks age groups are called in camp, but let's say seniors. If the seniors do a lot together, sometimes you can tell that to a parent, like they do so much together, even though they're not in the same bunk, they're not sleeping together.
My go-to line to a parent is, leagues are not done by bunk.
And learning a Seder is not done by bunk.
Right.
There's so much. Girls' camps, I think, are different, right? They're more bunk-oriented because sports is less centric, even in the sports-themed girls' camps. It's easier for a boy, maybe. I think it's also socially, girls are a little more leery of being a social outcast and being away from their best friend that they came with.
There's a tremendous amount of thought that goes into the bunks. We do honor every request. Again, there are certain things that on paper are going to look amazing, and when you put them into a bunk, they do need to be tweaked. And we're open to that. We're open to things that need to be tweaked if it's not working. We're open to making changes if we have to make a change. But generally speaking, if you talk to the parents and you explain to them that the age group does a lot together, and ask them, would it be better for your child to expand a little bit? They might say, yeah, there might be some growing pains there. And as a camp mother, back to our other little piece of that little heated discussion, I'll help manage them through those changes.
Right.
Yeah.
One more question, Mrs. Selengut. I know this is a little bit of uncomfortable question. We asked the same question to Rabbi Kuessous. I know it's a hot button issue always, and has gotten a lot more, Baruch Hashem, help over the last 20 years. And that's the question of abuse and healthy boundaries in camp.
Right.
And how these girls that are the counselors are young teenagers or teenagers. You could legally do background checks on them. Nothing's really going to come up. This mother says that my daughter is a typical 12-year-old daughter, that she's a little naive. She loves hanging around. She loves schmoozing. What do camps do to promote healthy boundaries and relationships? It's different with girls and boys, I think, being a father of 3 boys and 3 girls, in that girls naturally are schmoozier and they won't be ewed out by sitting on the same bed as a friend, where guys are a lot more possessive of get off my bed. They're closer. By the way, you touch a kid's bed at the wrong time of the day. Oof. So how do you promote?
And it's interesting because girls look at it like it's a status symbol, like her bed is the meeting.
It's the hangout bed. So how do you promote, on the one hand, just camp ruach and just amazing and crying and screaming and jumping, and on the other hand, to ensure that the relationships that are created in camp are healthy?
Right. Okay. It's a great question. I'm sure it's something that's on parents' minds. I want to just answer the question from a couple angles. First of all, in terms of training the staff, so we have a staff day before the campers come up, and we get a lot in 24 hours. And one of the things we do is we go through a series of videos that are put out by an organization called ASAP, which is a Jewish Camping Association. And there's 4 parts of this video that talk about healthy and unhealthy relationships in terms of touch, but also in terms of just attention. Like, it goes through everything. And we talk to the counselors about it vis-a-vis themselves and vis-a-vis keeping their eyes out for it in different areas of camp, meaning, are younger kids befriending older girls? Are older girls befriending younger girls? Like, to look for things that are just off. If there's 2 people spending a lot of time together, if there's a friendship that seems very intense, it can just be an unhealthy balance. So the counselors are really made aware through this workshop. There's conversation about it. In terms of things that they're looking out for, the message within the message is, we're watching you as well, meaning all eyes on you. There's a lot of, I want to also say that Camp Marava, some people love it, some people hate it. I love it, has a really strict attendance policy at all meals and at all activities, which means attendance is being taken all the time. It's not chilled. You can't not show up. I will also tell you that at times when the girls are out of the bunks for a long time, let's say between Oneg Shabbos and Havdalah, there's hours where they go from Oneg Shabbos to Mincha to Shabbos program to Shalosh Shudas to Havdalah. We sweep the bunks. We call it sweeping the bunks. We walk through the bunks a number of times. Just to
not a fun job.
Yeah, it's not a fun job, but it's good. Sometimes you'll just see a kid that had a headache and went back and they're by themselves. You just don't want them to be by themselves anyway. So we have to be on top of the whole situation, and the kids have to be, and the counselors have to be on top of it also. We do have a policy, absolutely never, ever sharing a bed, ever. And it's like non-negotiable. I also want to just mention, and I think I heard this in your question a little bit, is that if a parent knows that their child has a history of maybe looking for relationships that aren't great, or maybe they have a lot of insecurity and they're going to latch on to people just to get that attention or that big sisterliness, sometimes that's something that they should let the camp know, that when she feels insecure, she's going to form really tight relationships. And mothers have given me that heads up. And I look for it and I look for it. So we do the very best that we can. Baruch Hashem, we have a great track record, as I think Baruch Hashem, almost all the camps are very much on top of it. But again, if a parent has a certain concern about their child, and the counselors have to know that they are actually, it's a legal term, they're mandated reporters. So if a child tells them something that is uncomfortable for them, uncomfortable for the counselor, I'm saying, that anything happened in camp, that the counselor is a mandated reporter by law to come and tell me or to come and tell one of the directors.
Okay.
Can we end on like a happy note?
So,
I have a question, a happy question.
Yes.
What are you looking forward to? What moment of camp are you most looking forward to for this summer? I cannot wait for...
I love that question. It's a great question. I think the third Shabbos, Kabbalah Shabbos.
Wow.
The third Shabbos, Kabbalah Shabbos.
Whoa.
Yeah, tell us more.
It's just like we're there. We're just there. Everyone wants this as this chaperine feeling because it's the third Shabbos, but we're there. We're there. We're not worried about anything. We figured it out. I figured out where to keep my nash. And I figured out how to get to davening on time. And I figured out that the OD is not going to let me go to the bathroom for the 100th time after curfew. And we just figured it out. And it's just geschmack. I think
we both have a built-in advantage, Mr. Selengut, that we both are in camps that are only one half. And I grew up going to camp whole summer. And the line always also, my Adam Gadol in camping, Rabbi Gershon Kramer, was that really camp should be 6 weeks. Because once you hit week 6, the kids are burnt out, the staff is burnt out. And thank Hashem for Kol War to save the last 2 weeks of camp. So we don't have that. In a 4-week camp, you're so busy catching your breath because every day is the greatest day. It's a built-in advantage scheduling-wise. But by us, that to me, the Friday night Zmiris, when you start Kol Mekadosh Shvi, and you hear the thundering, we're the same size as my Rava, and just everyone looks around and we made it. We're back. Could you imagine December when it was snowing and we're here? You get goosebumps. I get goosebumps now thinking about it. We're here, guys. I look at 8th graders, 7th graders, 10th graders. Guys, we're here. The ability to be present in a moment of Shabbos, that Friday night, the Zmiris is special. And for all those that are lucky enough, not like Rabbi Garfield, to spend their summers in camp, not only to give over to children, but to get there, just energy, the reboost. It's a matana.
It's magic. And I want to tell you that when I see those kids leaving the last day of camp, and I can look at some kids and say, look what you did for yourself. Look what you did. And they can see it and they can feel it. They overcame whatever it was. And they know it, whatever it was, a friendship issue, a ruchnius issue, an eating issue, a social issue, a chutzpah issue with the counselor, but you did it. Look, it was so hard. You did it. And they go into school with that geschmack. But Garfield, you're really just benefiting from all of our work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because they come in with there is a magic, just back to the beginning. There's a magic. And hopefully I carry that magic with me all year. I don't know what else to say. I just do. I put on the Marava CD any day and I'm back there.
Amazing. I will say this. You are the right person for that job. So that is one thing I could say for sure.
Baruch Hashem. I'm very
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And my daughter wants, by the way, Desara wants not a bunk bed, but the bottom back bed.
Make sure all shampoo bottles are well secured, please. I don't want to
before camp. That's all. Yeah. That's the only thing I'm promising.
And I'm going to give you my phone number 1 digit off, Rabbi Schonfeld.
Thank you, Mrs. Selengut.
Okay. Well, as always, we are so appreciative of the many, many people who have reached out and left voice messages and sent us emails because that really fuels this podcast. It fuels our ability to have a active conversation with parents about real issues. And I'd like to share once again our call-in number. It's 443-686-9339. You could call in and leave a question or a comment and we'll review and look through for interesting ideas. Again, that's 443-686-9339. Alternatively, you could send an email to thelearningcurve@mishpacha.com. thelearningcurve@mishpacha.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us on the Learning Curve podcast.
Find more on this and other topics at mishpacha.com.